Namaskar. Welcome to new session. Today I intend to take up the questions which have come to us and come to me. I welcome all these questions. It's a wonderful thing that you are responding with some questions. This is what is very much required in educative process. There was one question with regards to no questions. That means while you are sharing me, maybe you will not get questions. And at this point in time, as students of philosophy, we should not be just examining and inquiring why someone gets questions and someone doesn't get questions. In philosophical process, we need to understand why someone has questions and why someone doesn't have questions. And why someone has questions but doesn't ask the questions. At times even some doesn't have question, but yet they question. So this aspect of question is very interesting aspect. As a matter of fact, there is one complete Upanishad dedicated to this. It's called Prashna Upanishad. Upanishad on Prashna, Upanishad on questions. And Shankaracharya in his preface makes a wonderful observation as to why people ask questions. And we must also delve into this as to why someone asks the questions. Now, usually we think question is a doubt, and you have a doubt, and therefore you have a question. Where somewhere you face opacity, and therefore you get a question. With respect to students, particularly in educative process, when we are considering the education, in an educative process, perhaps you might comprehend. Now, if you comprehend everything, you will say, I have no questions. But even then, a question has to be asked. You may not ask questions to me, but you have to put question to yourself. That's how one has to commence. You must put questions to yourself and find out if you can answer those questions. Now, as I said, it's not that there must be a question to ask a question. There must be a doubt to have a question, to ask a question. There should be a lack of clarity, and therefore you must ask a question. As students, as shishyas, as students, as disciples, as vidyarthis, this is not the case. Of course, you must ask question in such a case. But even if you think that you have understood, that you have comprehended, you have grasped, yet a question should be asked for a kind of confirmation. What I have construed, what I have conceived, is it right? Is it proper? And therefore, even when you have understood, there must be a questioning where it comes to education, where it comes to discipleship, where it comes to fellowship and studentship. So, this is an important point to be noted, that if you feel that you have understood something, comprehended whatever was taught to you, you will have to still put a question to start with to yourself, and maybe that may be meaningless question. So again, you have to ask the question to your teachers to confirm that what you have understood is right. Many things we think that we have understood it. Like in case of mathematics, you might solve a problem. The answer is right, but the steps are wrong. then in that case, that problem doesn't get marks. Answer might have come right, but somewhere there are mistakes, and by fluke or by chance, answer is right. So in mathematics, you just can't go by answers. That answer is right, and therefore somebody has solved a problem. We'll have to, examiners have to look into the process if anything has gone wrong. So similarly, you might have understood something, but yet a question has to be asked, because now the question comes in different reference as well. So you will get different kind of inputs. So in any case, one must be inquisitive in asking a question. Now, as I refer to Shankaracharya's preface to Upanisad, he makes a very interesting observation. He says, why someone asks a question? There are many reasons why someone would be asking a question. Little amusement here for you, that if you are traveling on a train or on a coach or in an airplane and you get a co-passenger next to you, now you just want to kill the time, and for the sake of time pass, you just ask some question to that person as to what the person is, from where the person is, and unnecessary inquiries are there. This is just for time pass. So that's an observation made by him. He says sometimes the questions are asked for no real purpose. It is some just time killing. Particularly in traveling, this happens. You get bored and therefore you want to ask some question to your co-passenger. Then he makes another interesting observation. He wants to put a question to check whether you know what I know. I know certain things, I have some knowledge somewhere, and I put a question to just check whether you also have some knowledge with regards to that. So to test your knowledge, the questioner will put a question. Apart from genuine conditions of asking questions, that you have a doubt and you have a question, you have a problem, you have lack of clarity, and therefore you ask a question. That's a genuine way of asking question, but otherwise questions can be used, could be taken resort to for various reasons. And also to check sometimes what I do not know, whether this person also doesn't know. And therefore you put a question in the realm where you don't have any knowledge, and therefore you want to check whether this person also has no knowledge about it. So it's an interesting observation that he has made. However, in knowledge pursuit, the questions must be there. Without having a question, it is possible to have questions to increase the input. If you have understood, to understand better. If you have understood, to check whether you have understood properly or not, sufficiently or not. You might have understood something, but may not be sufficient or may not be proper. Or it might be illusion that I have understood. So unless you put a question, you will not be sorting these things out at all. So therefore, asking a question on the part of student is very important. And while you are listening to me, maybe you will not get a question. But as I said the other day, that when I am talking to you, you are not merely listening, you are thinking. You are triggering your thought center. You are triggering your thought mechanism. So a question may not come here and now, right here and now, but it will surface after little deliberation on that subject matter. When you deliberate on it, maybe you will get a question sooner or later. So whenever you get a question, you should not hesitate to ask a question and put a question. Because you will have your thought process on whatever is heard and whatever is learned, whatever is taught, and therefore the questions will come. So, as I said, why someone doesn't ask question? See, there are various reasons why somebody will not ask question. This also you must take it for inquiry and examination. When you have implicit faith in someone, belief, faith, dedication, reverence to someone, naturally the questions will not be triggered. So, having implicit faith is one of the reasons why the questions are not surfacing. And therefore, after a while, when you are away from the direct interaction with the person, and when you have a thought process over it, maybe questions will surface. So, I just open this out for you to have an observation, an examination, and study and analysis. Why questions are asked, why questions are not asked. Even when there is a question, why question is not asked. Or even when there is no question, why question is asked. So again, in education, this is an important factor to consider. So that's about one question which I got. Another question, while I was talking with regards to dharma and karma, somebody had a very good question about destiny. Now, the person opined that when we are governed by destiny, then why dharma karma aspect should be coming up? Now, this philosophy or the karma siddhanta, the law of karma, doesn't really have any iota of fatalism in it. There is no fatalism in it, but it is deemed to be like that. So some of the philosophers even criticize the karma siddhanta, law of karma, saying that it encourages fatalism. But that is not the case. Or some of them have this kind of opinion. You are asked to, you should just carry out your karmas and never look for fruit, and this is the message of Bhagwad Gita. Just do your karmas and do not expect fruits and do not wait for fruits, do not look for fruits, do not be anticipating the fruits, expectantly waiting for fruits. That is not the message of Bhagwad Gita. He doesn't say just carry out your karmas. That's a kind of slavery. Just carry out the karmas. That is not at all the precept of Bhagwad Gita. Look into that verse of 2nd chapter, I think 248. It says, karmanevadikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana karmani eva adhikaraha te. We have right to action. It is not just a kind of advice, just carry out your actions. Like a house servant, a home servant, or someone who is subserving you has no right to activity because he is subserving you, he is your subservient, he is your servant, house servant. He has no right for karma. He has to do whatever he is asked to do. That is not the case of we people, the mortals. This is not a puppet show. We are not puppets that he pulls the strings and gets done everything, makes us do everything. That is not true. We are not in a puppet show. Our life is not puppet show. Although there is a destiny kind of thing. So Bhagavad Gita says you have right for action. You have right for karma. It is our right. And it's not merely a duty. So, This has to be understood, that it is a right. Karma Siddhanta is giving us a right. Karmanevadikaraste te. He nowhere says just go on doing karmas and don't have expectations for fruits. This is a negativistic tone which is not there in that philosophy, but the pseudo philosophies have churned out this kind of conclusion. So we have right to karma, but we have not right to fruit. See, the fruition is not in our hands. Fruition is in the hands of so many agencies: luck, ill luck, fortune, time, space, situation. When the fructification will take place is not in our hands. You can plant a tree, but you can't expect when will you get the flower and fruit from it. That is not in your hands. There are so many factors behind that to fructify as to when you will get a flower and when you will get a fruit. However, planting the tree is in your hand. When to plant the tree is in your hand. So the point is dharma and karma. Usually dharma is of the nature of vidinishedha. Vidinishedha means do's and don'ts. That is how usually the dharma comes up. It tells you about do's and don'ts. Now, if we were regulated by destiny, there was no point in telling us what to do and what not to do and when to do and when not to do. If we were all puppets, and if the destiny was going to pull our strings, then there was no need for such advice for mankind. However, dharma gives advices. Dharma tells us what to do, what not to do, how not to do, what to do when not to do what. So this is called vidinishedha. And because we have right to do, right to act, right to karma. There is a sutra to this effect in Brahma Sutras. So why are we given advices? Why Vedas are not there for birds, animals, insects, worms, trees? Why Vedas are not there for them? Why are they meant for only mankind? Because we are in karma yoni. We have right to act. And therefore we have some powers. You can't be having no powers and rights. If you are given some rights, you are given powers. You cannot be given rights without giving powers. So we are given powers also according to Karma Siddhanta. So when he says karmanevadikaraste te, that means we are also given powers. It's not just right, it's power. So therefore in Brahma Sutra there is a sutra called Karta Shastra Tattvat. The Shastrartha. Why the Shastras are there? Why there is interpretation of Shastras? Because we are Kartas. So we can be told to do. It is human beings who could be told to do and told not to do, while other creatures will go by their tendencies. They go by their propensities. That's called bhoga yoni, and ours is karma yoni according to Karma Siddhanta. So we have right to be doing. Now insofar as destiny is there, we are all bound by destiny, no doubt about it. Now destiny is created by us, by our purva karmas. Not that somebody forms a destiny for us and then we have to just adhere to it. No. We ourselves have created our own destiny. Retrospectively we have created it and now we have to face it. In past karmas and in past lives we have created our destiny. So we are creators of our own destiny. It's not that somebody pulls the strings. It is not right to think that the God pulls the strings for us and makes us do everything. Our karmas are decided by us. Now, when we are, there is a destiny of no doubt, that's beyond any doubt. But what is destiny? Destiny is a frame, and we will be working only in that frame, in that lifespan. So there is a kind of play in destiny. Say, there is a minimum level and maximum level. That destiny is given, the plan is given, the scheme of destiny is there. But then you could be at the bottom of it, the bottom rung of it, or you can be at the top rung of it. So we are given the range to function in the destiny frame or destiny range. It's not that the destiny is totally governing us. So whatever you are supposed to be doing destined to be doing in your life, you can be doing it in a worst possible manner to best possible manner. We are given the range. So our skills, our intelligence, our judgments and perceptions and cognitions and our sanskars, these will give us that play to be between the minimum line and the maximum line, the bottom line and the top line. So if you are well organized, if you are having a proper development of your conscience, you will tend to be on the higher range of the destiny. But otherwise, you will be in the lower range of destiny. If you say anyway it's going to happen by destiny, I will not do anything, then it will happen. It will happen, but you will be at the lowest level of it. Then understand what is the outcome. So destiny doesn't enslave us. It gives us a range to work. So either you can be going towards the best side of it, and if you don't make that attempt to go to the better and best side of it, then you will be at a worst side of it. So therefore, that's the right. So destiny also gives us a right. So again, I repeat, it's not a puppet show. We are not puppets. Our destiny or the God or someone, something doesn't pull the strings and make us move. So there is no fatalism in Karma Siddhanta. There is a lot of positivism in Karma Siddhanta. You can be going for highest level in destiny that is given to you. Like in case of economic strata, if somebody is a middle class, now it's a range. When we say this is a middle class, this is upper middle class, this is lower middle class there itself. So somebody is poor, somebody is middle class, somebody is rich. Now everywhere there is a range. For a poor class, there is a range. Middle class, there is a range. And then in a richer class, there is a range. So we are given freedom to be on the upper side of our range. The poor person can be definitely going for higher, the top line of the poor strata. The middle class people can be going to the top line of the middle class strata, and the rich person can go to upper line of the rich man strata. So like in economic status, we are given a range. All middle class people are not middle. There are lower middle, there are upper middle. Rich people are not rich of the one and the same class. There are lower rich, middle rich and higher rich. So also case of poor. Lower poor, middle poor and higher poor. So there is a freedom for us to improve our economic activity and use our acumen, prudence, etc., the luck factor and even skill factor, education factor, etc., can definitely help one go to the higher line of the range. So Karma Siddhanta doesn't really have any slavery aspect in it. We are given freedom. Anyway, we will not be discussing this karma siddhanta. This is only to answer the question that there is no fatalism. That's the answer here. There is no need to be negative. If I get, I will get it. If I don't get it, I won't get it. Why try? No, this is not at all encouraged by karma siddhanta. Karmani eva adhikaraha. Therefore, with adhikara you are given powers. With the right you are given powers. And you can use the powers skillfully, intelligently, and with proper time, space, situation, aspects, factors, and it will certainly give you the best of the fruits. So that's about the question which had come when we were discussing dharma and karma, about the destiny. Then, while we were dealing with meditativity, somebody had questioned about prerana. Where does prerana come? Prerana means motivation. You see, prerana is a quick kickstarter for you to be having any activity pursuit or knowledge pursuit. It has to get kick-started. Whether it is in the realm of knowledge or in the realm of activity, there must be a motivation. And the motivation, that is the prerana. The prerana comes as a kickstarter. Now, or the starter of a car today. I told you that during my talks that starter is something that you just use it to get started. Once the car is started, you don't again touch the starter. You don't dabble with it. You don't interfere with it. You don't again turn it. That will harm the engine. So it is only to start. So prerana comes there as a starter. Or the first gear of the car. We don't drive the car on the first gear. It is just to get the momentum, automotion. And we want to shift to second and third and fourth, fifth gears as soon as possible, as early as possible. As and when we need it, then only we come to first gear to get started. Having got started, we'll try to look for changing the gears immediately. So prerana is something like that. It's the first gear. You must look to change that gear as early as possible. However, without first gear, your car won't start properly. It is not proper to straight away go to second gear. Start the car and straight away go to second gear. It will be taxing the engine. You can't take a bypass to first gear. Might take it if there is some problem with the clutch plate, etc. Then perhaps you will take a bypass, but it is not right and good for vehicle. It jerks a vehicle. And vehicle doesn't pick up well if you straight away go to second gear, taking a bypass to first gear. So similarly, the prerana is the motivation. If you recall the dynamics which I explained, drive, motive, motion, execution, purpose. So motive is a facet of prerana, is a facet of motivation. Now that is required to get started. And then in the meditativity process, we were coming to thinking, and the thought aspects. So the prerana, which is kickstarter, is left behind, far behind, by the time you are in this higher activity. And therefore, the prerana has been mentioned during my talks when I spoke about the dynamics. Dynamics comprise of drive, motive, motion, execution, purpose, and that motive is another form. That's a form of prerana. That's a form of motivation. If you don't get motivated, you don't get started. So it is so important, so fundamental. However, it has to be discarded with as early as possible. Like the first gear is done away with as early as possible. You don't stay in first gear too long. That is immature driving. If you are too long in the first gear, when not needed, if you are driving the car in first gear, it is immaturity. And it's not good for a vehicle as well. So it's just to get the momentum, get started. That's how prerana comes. Hope I have answered that question satisfactorily. Then came another question about, somebody had the impression that when I was speaking about thought, thinking and thinker, somebody had this, and quite obvious also, that it is something called intellectual gymnastics. That it seems to be a circus of brain, cerebral circus, trying to identify thinker, thought and thinking, and then try to analyze them, try to visualize them, and try to handle them, manage them, etc., etc. So it seems to be a cerebral circus. But if you recall, the very question I took with reference to Guruji's mention that his asanic practices were dynamic meditation. At his hierarchy, his thought process was so refined, so evolved, so refined that you could get the reflections and they could reflect. A thought could be reflecting, thought could be reflected, thought was reflector. Now, don't venture to do this gymnastics while you are sitting on a garden bench. You have some thought in the mind and you try to go by this. Let me try to understand the thinker and thinking and thought and try to decipher them and then try to analyze and try to understand their profiles and their roles and function. No, that's not the way. It is only in yoga. Don't be sitting on a sofa in your drawing room or in veranda or in a garden, sitting on a bench, sitting on a chair and then trying to understand this. No, it doesn't come there. It only comes in yoga. And then there would be no cerebral circus. If you now try to do in this empirical state of the mind and cerebral state of mind, we are all now in cerebral state. Now in this state of mind, if you try to work on this topic and subject matter, the tripartite constitution of thinker, thought and thinking, then it will be circus. Whereas in asanas, if you recall the preparatories, I mentioned the preparatories in very first session, that we go for associated conditions and needed conditions and unified conditions. So these are not cerebral processes because we are well needed, well mutually related in body, mind, breath, senses, organs, psyche, consciousness, etc. We are well associated. So it's more needed condition, associated condition, unified condition. So this is not cerebral. If you are having this process in a very, say, profound Shirshasana, suppose you are quite proficient in Shirshasana, now the posture becomes insignificant. And you can be going for a thought process, refined thought process if you are well matured in Shirshasana. But if Shirshasana is a posture and you struggle not to fall, etc., etc., you struggle to maintain your alignment, etc., then this doesn't come in there. So when you are proficient in that particular asana, and when you have these needed conditions, associated conditions, unified conditions, it is the whole embodiment process and not a cerebral process. If you recall, I said the back paradigm. Now, the back is not a cerebral part of the body, but you perhaps experience the back was almost a locus for thought, thinking and thinker. That is what the caliber of spine is, or back is, or even shoulder blade is, or shoulder is, while you are in asana. Not otherwise. You are sitting on a chair Now, they will not be able to get that status because they are not really mutually related to each other. There is no amalgamation, there is no needed condition, and there is no unified condition. Whereas in asanas we go for that. Then it won't be a cerebral circus. Then there was also the question in Shavasana. They say our yoga is all a Shavasana or meditation of this fashionable world where yoga has become a fashion. We do meditation to just relax, just to relax. No, relaxation is not summum bonum of human spiritual endeavor. We want relaxation because we are stressed in this world, in the turmoil of the world. And therefore, by our meditation, we want some kind of stress management. We want to get de-stressed conditions. That's why we are going for meditation these days. It has become highly fashionable. You get on your online guided meditations, and they will just say relax, 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 relax. Yogis were not looking for relaxation. Do you mean to say that they were stressed like you and me, who are so mundane people, so temporal people, so cerebral people? So in yoga, the meditativity did not come for, or meditation did not come to just relax. It came for wisdom. If yogis were meditating, it's not that they were stressed like you and me, and they were stressed like some CEO of some corporate body or MNC, not CEO of MNC, and therefore they were getting stressed, etc. They were not going for dhyana, for getting de-stressed. Whereas today we want it because that's our need today. I am not being critical about it. Today it is our need, and therefore we need to do. So therefore we'll have to draw out as much as relaxation as possible. But in case of yoga and in case of yogis, it was for wisdom process. And in wisdom process, you need to have the dynamic meditation. You must be having this clarity about thought, thinker, thinking, their interaction, their interplays, their role by rotations. They can be playing rotation, role by rotation. Each one can play the role of the other one. So that is wisdom process, not knowledge process. For wisdom process, you need it. So it's not a cerebral circus. It doesn't take place in brain. Moreover, today when you have this kind of satsanga, many of you might be going for satsang channels on your television or on your YouTubes, and then you have guided meditations. And these are very cerebral processes. They will be speaking you thoughts, they will be triggering thoughts in you. They will say, think this way, think on this, this is the thought, this is the thinking, think this way, this is the way you should be thinking, etc., etc. So all those activities are in the cerebral region above the throat. They don't have to do anything with the rest of the body. It is only cerebral parts will be working, and all those, that's why they are cerebral kind of meditative processes. Relax your brain, relax your mind, and the locus of mind is above the shoulders, above the throat, and everything will be going on there. So they will be talking to you, they will be giving sermons like I am talking to you. This can be deemed that this is a cerebral process. Yes, I am cerebral in my talking, because I am using my memory, I am using my intelligence, whatever the database I have got, information base I have got about it, I am using it. But when I get to doing it, the whole body is involved in the process. Body, mind, breath. So it's an integral process. Now when I have to explain, I have to explain you with cerebral kind of process. But when you are going to do it, understand why the spine is important. But you listen to these satsangs in your televisions and your YouTubes, they do nothing with your spine. The spine is not contributing, only their brain is contributing, and you get all material from their brains. You try to follow those instructions. Their only part of the body above the head will be working. Somebody is giving a talk, a discourse, philosophical talk. The part of the body below the neck has no function in direct function in what the person is speaking about. But in yoga, your shoulder blades will be involved, your shoulders will be involved, spine will be involved, pelvic, perineum, abdominal region will be involved, your limbs will be involved. So, integral process, it is not cerebral process. So, all that I spoke about, meditativity and meditation, etc., it was not really cerebral circus. It was not cerebral circus actually. But for you to explain, I had to use the faculties of the brain, my memory, my perceptions, my information base, my knowledge base, structure, whatever I have in my brain. So I am now talking to you from my brain. But when you actually get to doing it, you are in that position, sthira sukhamatsanam. Right from your anal mouth, everything is involved. When the satsang is going on, their buttock bone is almost in dormancy. It has no role to play, it is totally inert. But if you are going to go for meditation, yogic meditation, understand how much importance you have to give to buttock bone, its participation, its involvement, its addressal, its usage. So how much you have to use your spine, its participation, its addressal, its usage, involvement, how much you have to use the breath, its participation, its involvement, its usage, etc. So it is not proper to construe that was a cerebral circus or meditation concept or meditativity that I explained, or the dynamic meditation which I explained was in a cerebral circus. Because that is only in asanas. In asanas you are connected with each part of your body and mind, gross to subtle. So there are connectivities, profound connectivities, needed conditions, unified conditions. And therefore, it is not cerebral. In the concept of cellular intelligence, you understand if you are going to sit in swastikasana for your pranayama or meditation, how importance you give to bottom of the tongue, buttock bones, anama, vagina, scrotum, rectum, perineum. Now, are they cerebral parts? They are not cerebral, but they have very important participation. So it won't be cerebral process, cerebral circus when it is done in asanas. But if you sit in a garden bench and go on thinking on the meditation concept which I told you, then it will be cerebral circus. But when you actually get to doing it, there won't be cerebral circus. So hope that answers that question as well, that there is nothing like cerebral circus. It is in asana, it is in pranayam. Then the person also had a doubt that in shavasana, Guruji says, relax the brain, relax the brain, relax the brain. You know, the connotation of the word relaxation changes. The very connotation changes. If you are stressed and tense and if we say relax, what does it mean? But when you are not stressed and tensed, yet we can be telling you there is an advice that you should relax. Now, when you are in shavasana, it is not that you are stressed and tensed and worried person, and then you are told to relax. The connotation of relaxation changes while in shavasana. It is to become sublime. It is to become sedate. It is to become serene. So, quietude, tranquility, neutrality, virginity, sublimity, purity, piety, sanctity, sanity, equity, equanimity, equilibrium is the connotation of relaxation in shavasana. But suppose in your Vrushchikasana and your Kapotasana and teacher says, please relax. What are you going to relax? You are going to relax your facial muscles or some tension in the eyes and tension here and there. Because relaxation of Kapotasana is one thing and relaxation of Shavasana is another thing. So experience this. So when it comes in Shavasana, when he says relax the brain, he doesn't say just relax the brain. Sanity is one of the attributes, which I gave you a long list: tranquility, neutrality, virginity, sublimity, purity, piety, sanctity, sanity, equity, equanimity, equilibrium. This is the meaning of word relaxation. In different hierarchies, that will again change. If you are in lower hierarchy, you won't circumscribe so many things. If you are in higher hierarchy, you will circumscribe all that. So it doesn't mean that there should be no thought, thinking, etc. while in Shavasana. Shavasana is your own thinking. It is a thought process. We are not restraining the vritti in Shavasana, otherwise Shavasana would be Samadhi. Shavasana is not a Samadhi, there is a thought process, sublime thought process, ethereal thought process, and reflective thought process. There is a sheen to the surface which is reflecting, there is a sheen which is being reflected, there is a sheen to reflection. So reflection, reflected, reflecting, they all have sheen, and therefore they will cast reflection on each other, and therefore it is not right to say right to think that in Shavasana you don't go for that meditativity which I explained. It is very much there. Clarity about thought, thinker, thinking, analysis, and then unification, etc. Then there was a question about somebody wanted to know the difference and non-difference between the mind which we refer to. We are all used to mind. They will say this is mind, that is mind. We know our mind. We know somebody's mind. We say this is mind, that is mind. So the question was, what is the distinction, difference and non-difference between the mind that we refer to in our temporal empirical plane? This is mental, this is psychomental, etc. and chitta. So what is the difference and non-difference between mind and chitta? Say, I will again take recourse to an example here, illustration here. If you are at seashore, take a container and fill up the seashore, the sea water into the container. Now the water in the ocean and water in your container is one and the same. You go for chemical analysis, chemical test, they will tell you this is ocean water. Okay. So, in physical chemistry, substantially, the water in your container and water of the ocean is one and the same. In physical chemistry, essentially they are one and the same. Whatever amount of the H2O there and salt there and other minerals, whatever you get in sea waters, they will be found even in the container water because you have picked up the water from sea. So, substance-wise, to an extent, there won't be much difference, but manifestation-wise, there is a huge difference. You won't get bubbles, foam, waves in the container where the ocean water is contained. But you look out in the ocean, you will see all those things. Waves are there, foam is there. The turbulence is there. The water is unsteady. You will never see the sea water frozen unless it is sub-zero temperatures there on polar regions. Otherwise, in tropical, subtropical region, you will see that the water is having movement all the time. But the container water will be steadied. In no time, the container water will be steadied. It won't take a long time for water to steady. Is the water of ocean ever steady like that? Never. Although there is same water. It is same water in the container, it gets steadied easily. Similarly, our mind can get steadied easily. Take a sedative, go to sleep, it will get steadied. There is no big problem in steadying that mind. Although we say the mind is difficult to steady, yes. It is difficult to steady when you are in a wakeful state, which is the statement in Bhagwad Gita. But that mind can be steadied. Take a tranquilizer, mind will be steadied. Take a sleeping pill, it will be steadied. Or if you get natural sleep, go to sleep, it will be steadied. Like ocean water, sea water, picked up in a container will get steadied without much problem and without taking much of the time. But what about the water out in the ocean? Then, if you sit at the seashore, you will say, I am seeing the sea, and you will say, I am knowing the sea. What do you know? Incoming wave, outgoing wave, ferocity of the wave, low tide, high tide, or some bubbles coming up, some foam coming up. What do you see? You see only surface water on the ocean. Up to the horizon it extends. You might sight up to the horizon, but what will you see there? It's just surface of the water. There is no comparison between the surface of ocean and what lies at different depths of ocean. 100 meters to 500 meters to 1000 meters to 5000 meters to 8000 meters. You can't even imagine what that ocean is at such a depth or at a distance beyond the horizon. The sea extends beyond the horizon. You can only see up to horizon. You can spend lifetime by sitting at the seashore. How much will you know the ocean, tell me? Whole lifetime you can be at the seashore. Go on watching the ocean day in and day out. How much are you going to know the ocean? Hardly anything. Not even 0.0000001%. Because ocean is Ratnakar. What is inside the ocean cannot be even imagined. So to understand the ocean, we must know the ocean up to whatever maximum depth it has. As a GK, I can tell you that the Pacific Ocean near Philippines has, it reaches the greatest depth, around 39,000 feet and plus. So it's more than about 8,000 meters, 9,000 meters. Everest is 8,000 odd, and this depth is much more than that. Now that is the depth. What is at that depth? Can you imagine? Now the water that you picked up will give you no clue to you. You give it to any scientist and ask him to explore ocean by the container water. It is sea water. Ask him to understand the whole ocean from that. It will be not possible. In physical chemistry, essentially it is one and the same water. Properties are same. But even scientists will not be able to understand ocean by studying that water picked up in a container. He has to be oceanographer. He has to dive into the ocean, explore the ocean. So this chitta is like that. Mind is like surface. You see, go to seashore and watch the sea, incoming wave, outgoing wave, sometimes high ferocity, sometimes no ferocity or low tide, etc. That's all you will see by sitting at the seashore. The chitta is like ocean. This empirical mind or cerebrally conceived mind is just the surface of it. The chitta has been described as manas, buddhi, ahankar together. Mind itself is the ocean. Our mind itself is the ocean. Even the psychologists do not know the depth of the mind. Our intelligence is the ocean. Buddhi in the sense. Ahankar is an ocean. So manas, buddhi, ahankar put together is chitta. And each one is ocean by itself. And these are different oceans. Not just different names to oceans like Atlantic, Indian, and Pacific. They are one and the same ocean. We have only given different names. That's all. But these are different oceans. We are not just nomenclatures, difference in names. Mind is an ocean. It has its depth, it has its own characteristics. Buddhi as an ocean has its own characteristics. And ahankar as an ocean has its own characteristics. We contain oceans within us. That's why it is called microcosm. Anyway, the chitta is like that. Therefore, yoga deals with chitta. It is not manovritti nirodha, it is chitta vritti nirodha. Manovritti nirodha, swallow a pill, you will have manovritti nirodha. It is not chitta vritti nirodha. So chitta has that much of depth. That's the difference and non-difference. There is non-difference. Like there is non-difference between ocean water and water picked up in a container. There is non-difference in some respect. So there is also non-difference. Substance-wise it is one and the same, but manifestation-wise it is totally different. And in metaphysics, this manifestation is counted rather than merely substance. See, the metaphysical entity in us, the I, metaphysical, and the same metaphysical entity of divinity is one and the same, essence-wise one and the same, Purusha Vishesha. But manifestation-wise, like ocean is almost omnipotent water force. And the water in a container has no force. You can turn out electricity from ocean waves. You can't turn out, by stirring the water in a glass, you can't turn out electricity because of the volume. So that volume totally changes the manifestation. The way ocean is totally different. That will never be, even if you stir the water heavily in a glass, it will never become ocean-like. You can put a vibrator or you can put stir the water. It will never become ocean-like. It's a different manifestation. So in metaphysics, they consider manifestation. We'll hopefully consider the chitta in greater depth when we try to understand the whole mind stuff, the chitta, with reference to Shat Chakras, Panchatattvas, and the Panchakoshas. Then we will know what enormous depth, it's really an ocean. Mind is just a glass of water filled up with water. While our chitta is like ocean within us. 3 oceans within us. And they are not 3 oceans like Atlantic, Indian and Pacific. That's only we have given the names for our convenience to demarcate them. It's just one ocean on the planet. It's just one ocean, not 3 or 5. So that will sometimes tell us about what is this ocean. So that was perhaps the last question. Before that, one more, Linga Sharira. Somebody read in Discourses on Yoga, there are 17 aspects of Linga Sharira. And somebody read into Sankhyakarika. So let me tell you, Sankhyakarika is a very metaphysical text. There is not much of psychology in Sankhyakarika or even Sankhya philosophy. It has relegated it to yoga. That's why it's a pair. Sankhya Yoga is a pair. So Sankhya relegated psychological aspects to yoga. So Sankhyakarika, you will not get much description about the Sukshma Sharira and Linga Sharira. If you want to understand those with a better depth, you have to look into Vedantic texts and yogic texts. So yogic texts will tell you about Linga Sharira, and there is no point in looking for Sukshma Sharira description in Sankhyakarika. It only touches it because of the metaphysical reality. It doesn't investigate into it. Because its investigation means chitta investigation, and that is in yoga, which is a twin system. Sankhya Yoga is a twin system, and therefore Sankhya doesn't do that inquiry. So if you want to know much about the Linga Sharira, it is Yoga Shastra, Vedanta Shastra, which will tell you about it. Sankhyakarika will only describe Linga Sharira, that's all. I can describe a human being, he has 2 legs, 2 hands, and two arms, and 2 eyes, and 2 nostrils, and 2 ears, and a mouth, etc. Now, is that the description enough for you to understand someone? Not at all. So it is only describing the human being. So it only describes Sukshma Sharira. It doesn't go into depth of it, because that job is carried out by its twin system called Yoga and even Vedanta. So I think that is enough for the time being. Let's take up few more questions which already I have received, but in the next session. Enough for the day. So, namaskar.